Leela Thebessa, a girl with black hair paired with eyes of the same color, and pinkish-white skin, was taken under the wing of the extremely prestigious Duchy of Wiliot, the Sword of the Empire, when she was 14 as fiancée of their only son Philin. At such a young age, under the Duchess' direct supervision, she's been trained as the next lady of the Duchy. They treated her well, just as they would have if they were blessed with a daughter. Her relationship with her fiancé, though not on a romantic scale, is casual and a tad friendly. Philin, being oblivious of things that concern their duchy, concentrated on swordsmanship. Leela was entrusted with managing the ducal mansion and its businesses. Life for Leela was normal, but life, as if it decided to play with her, had other plans. On a rainy night, when the sky itself seemed to fall from the heavens, the Duke and Duchess both perished on a carriage accident while giving aid to the townsfolk affected by the flood. Philin, despite the responsibilities that await him upon inheriting his father's title, gave in to depression and locked himself up in the training grounds. Leela was left all alone to manage the whole duchy. Their marriage was postponed to give way to mourning. Not long after, the Emperor announced the conquest of the mainland. Philin joined the expedition. For 6 years he was in the battlefield. Leela managed his family resources and took care of the servants, making sure that Philin has a place he can call home when he returns. And finally, the time has come for the master of the duchy to return. Everyone was excited. The maids dolled up Leela, while the others prepared a feast to welcome their master. As they await him by the front door, a shocking scene unfolds. Philin, riding his horse, has a strange blonde woman in his arms, and she seemed to be pregnant. Shock registered on Leela's face as the scene unfolds right in front of her. Audible gasps and hushed gossip from the servants made buzzing sounds. Acting as if it was nothing, Philin jokingly greeted Leela and asked if she forgot to speak. Out of practice decorum, Leela was able to control her emotions and coherently replied to Philin despite feeling shaken. Exchanging brief pleasantries, Philin once again turned to the pregnant woman, who goes by the name Sizzly. Carefully, he helped her go down from the horse and summoned one of the maids named Misha. As if his fiancé wasn't there, he asked the pregnant woman what kind of room she prefers. The woman answered, in a purring tone, that she wants some things with lots of sunshine. Philin gave her the Duchess room to use. Leela raised a pertinent argument that no one can use the Duchess room, except the lady of the duchy, but Philin shut her down by saying that as the owner of the duchy, he has every right to give anyone whichever room he wants. Resignedly, Leela acquiesced and let the servants obey their master's order. Leela and Philin did not see the snide smirk that Sizzly made as the servants escort her to the room that was given to her. In the absence of the servants, Philin asked Leela if she's angry. She wanted to spat at him, but sensing that he expects an agreeable answer from her, Leela immediately fixed her expression and said yes. Philin prodded no further and went on ahead. Left alone in the room she uses as an office, Leela was swamped with worry over the recent events in their duchy. They will be the hot pot of talk among servants and fellow nobles. The young master, who just inherited his father's title as duke, left the duchy to join the expedition for 6 years. Coming back, he brings a pregnant woman home, where his fiancé, who worked for everything to maintain the duchy, resides. She wanted to ignore it all, to leave everything in disarray and just forget everything. But the late Duke and Duchess entrusted her with the duchy. She can't disrespect the trust they gave her. Swamped with appeals and proposals from the nobles who are directly under the duchy's supervision, Leela ignored her personal issues and worked through the documents. The hardships she endured just to prove she can do the job entrusted to her by the late Duke and Duchess can all go to waste with just a simple mistake. Absorbed with her mountain load of work, she was startled to hear a peal of thunder. Because she was concentrating, she failed to notice that it started raining outside. Lightning and thunder terrified her, and during their times together, Philin was kind enough to keep her company, but that won't be possible anymore. She's certain that he's keeping Sizzly company in her room. The maid's call for dinner was a lifesaver. Facing other people will force her to ignore her fear and the things that make her feel miserable. As she was heading towards the dining hall, she saw a maid pushing a breakfast trolley. It was headed to Phylan's room, or more aptly to the room that Sizzly is currently using. Phylan will be dining with the pregnant woman. Wanting to maintain the peace at the duchy, Leela chose to keep silent about the breach of decorum that Phylan is committing. She is not the lady of the duchy. Diverting her thoughts from the things that might incite her anger, which might lead to an argument between her and Phylan, she decided to work until late that night. When a knock came from the door, Baron Wizard, an elderly noble, was there to ask for her signature on documents that are needed urgently. Feeling exasperated with Phylan's recent actions and his continuous neglect of his ducal duties, despite being present at the duchy, she instructed the Baron to confer with Phylan instead, much to the surprise of the elderly nobleman. As instructed, he sought Phylan to process the documents, but as expected, Phylan couldn't care less and sent the man back to Leela, conceited enough to think that the reason for Leela's recent action was to vie for his attention. While talking to the Baron, Sizzly intervened and seductively inquired if Phylan still had to work even if it's already evening. The young duke, knave as he was, gave in to her and drove the Baron away. Inside their room, Sizzly manipulated Phylan into using honorifics with Leela. She noticed the way they address each other, and feigning concern, she pointed out that being over-familiar with each other when they aren't married yet can be detrimental to his authority and reputation as a duke. Not knowing any better, Phylan would follow her suggestion. Meanwhile, at Leela's quarters, after having her dinner and bath, she wasn't surprised to see Baron Willard back to her and begging that she took care of the documents as she used to. She doesn't want to delay the papers any further and hinder the duchy's business. However, she already decided that it's time Phylan learns to take care of their family business, because she cannot do it for him forever, since she is not a member of their family. She was giving back the approved documents to Baron Wizard when suddenly a peal of thunder occurred. The Baron was kind enough to ask if she's okay, sensing the slight change in her demeanor. Not wanting to be a burden, Leela said she's okay and sent the man ahead. Alone once again, she decided to call it a night and head to bed. Alas, the thunderstorm is not over yet. Feeling afraid, she wrapped herself with her blanket, recalling the times when she's scared. Whenever she feels afraid, Misha will always stay with her. She'll prepare her something warm to drink, but Misha isn't there with her at present, and she wonders what's keeping her. Said maid is currently in the room of Sizzly, looking none too happy and ready to leave at any moment, the two occupants of the room blissfully unaware of her worry. Phylan finally noticed her and was about to send her away when Sizzly deviously asked for a massage, claiming that her thigh and hips were aching due to the long hours she spent riding a horse. Misha knew she can't say no because she's a servant, so she reasoned out that her massaging capabilities are even inferior to that of a child, but Phylan insisted, and Misha was further kept in the room while worrying for her mistress. Phylan sat himself by the single-seat couch and looked out the window, watching the raging night sky. The next morning, Phylan visited Leela's quarters to hand her an urgent invitation to the enthronement of the new emperor. It's about to happen in a month. Acting just like she did before in front of her fiancé, Leela recited the necessary preparations and reminded Phylan of the schedule of things to make it in time for the event. Much to Leela's surprise, Phylan cut her short, following the advice of Sizzly. He told Leela that she should be using honorifics when addressing him. Shocked though she was, she acquiesced, but retaliated that he should also address her as Lady Thebessa when in public. Going back to their discussion about the party, Leela informed Phylan that she'll be calling an exclusive designer to make a dress fit for the celebration. To her horror, Phylan declared that he'll order a dress for Sizzly as well, for he plans to look around the capital with her. using the excuse that she'll get bored if she's left behind in the duchy. Leela's exasperation reached another level when Philin instructed her to order a dress that's on par with what she'll be wearing for the occasion, making it clear that he wants Sizzly to be treated like an important guest. Sarcastically, Leela asked Philin if he really thinks, at that point, that she's still the lady of the duchy, to which Philin affirmatively answered, he's betrothed to her. Who else would it be? Furthermore, he divulged his plan of kicking Sizzly from the duchy the moment she gave birth to their child. His statement made Leela remember her own father doing the exact same thing. Her mother, a woman he impregnated, was immediately driven away after giving birth to her. Philin plans the same things with Sizzly. She'll be driven away, but her son shall be recorded in the family register. He tried once again to make her understand that she should take care of Sizzly, but Leela vehemently refused. If he really believes that she's the lady he ought to marry, then he should forget the notion to make her the caretaker of the pregnant woman. With the presence of the pregnant woman and the way they address each other with honorifics as of late, the duchy's servants started gossiping amongst themselves, but Leela did not admonish them. Whatever they were talking about are true anyway. Treading the vast hall of the duchy's mansion, Leela thought that she never hoped for love between her and Philin. What she truly wanted back then was to escape the count's, her father's house. Admittedly, she's hurt by how Philin is paying attention to the pregnant woman, but she decided to avoid seeing her because she believes that it'll be less painful that way. However, the callous woman just won't let her be. Obviously waiting for her, she flaunted her enlarged belly to Leela as if boasting of her pregnancy and invited her to touch it. Knowing better, she kept her cool and casually declined the offer. But the woman did not stop. She introduced herself, declaring her full name as Sizzly Heliot, confident that by hearing her name, Leela would know its significance, and recognize she did. Heliot was the name of the fallen royal family from the kingdom of Mulis. Their territory and family have been usurped by their empire in the recent expedition. A member of a fallen royalty is on the same status as a commoner or even lower. Sizzly is already breaching etiquette by approaching Leela without any appointment. Leela, despite knowing that fact, greeted the woman and introduced herself as Leela Thebessa. To the horror of Misha, who was accompanying her at that time, Sizzly addressed Leela as Miss, an inappropriate way to address someone of higher status. Enraged, the maid pointed it out and cited the reality of Sizzly's social status. She also made her realize that it is out of the goodness of Lady Thebessa, Leela's rightful title, that despite her low status, she is enjoying the perks of the mansion and living like a princess. Shock visibly registered in Sizzly's face. Leela intervened in her maid's behalf and apologized for her maid's honesty. However, she did not scold her maid. Sizzly was out of line, saying goodbye and addressing Sizzly by her surname without any honorifics. Just as any noble would address someone of lower status, they left her alone. Leela headed to her office, and out of her exasperation with Sizzly, she slumped sloppily on her desk and moaned her annoyance with her. As if Sizzly is not enough bad news, a letter from the countess, her father's wife, came. She is visiting the duchy. Leela dreads to face her because of the experience she had with her when she was still small. She would often hit Leela, who is not her real daughter, whenever she failed to meet her expectations. Upon hearing the news of the countess' visit, Misha started the preparations to welcome the countess, despite Leela's assurance that they need not bother themselves since she's not staying, only visiting. One bad thing after the other. A servant informed her that the pregnant woman suddenly fainted. The doctor has been summoned and Philin is on his way too. She hasn't thanked the maid for long and Philin comes storming her office and was demanding she tell him what she did to Sizzly. Telling him the truth made no effect, for he still insinuated that she did something to Sizzly, even went as far as threatening her if something happens to the child. At that moment, Leela realized that Philin has deeper feelings for the pregnant woman. What he promised as marriage, is something bound to be the annulment of their engagement. The next day, Countess Tebessa came, and it wasn't with glad tidings. She visited to berate her of her failure to secure her spot as Duchess, despite her advice to get married right after the Duke and Duchess' death. She also handed her 2 bottles, one to aid pregnancy, and the second was to eliminate pregnancy. Horrified with the Countess' suggestions, she cut their meeting short and spent time in her chambers. True enough, she hates Sizzly, but not enough to abort the child. A sudden knock on her door stopped her reverie. Misha went in and informed her that the dressmaker has arrived. She gave instructions to hasten the shoes and jewelry maker when Misha told her they haven't arrived yet. Much to her surprise, Philin was already at the Grand Salon, according to her maid, but Misha's next words mortified her. Sizzly was with him, and he's teaching her how to greet guests. Upon hearing what's transpiring in the Grand Salon, Leela hastened. Greeting guests is a Duchess role. She wondered why Philin is letting the strange woman do the greetings, but she hesitated as she reached the Grand Salon. She reminded herself that she's not the lady of the duchy. They aren't married yet. She's no different than Sizzly. She tried to calm herself as she entered, but rage filled her as she saw what Sizzly was wearing. Sizzly was checking out the dress she ordered for herself. She was also wearing the maternity dress the late Duchess gave her. Unable to contain her emotions any longer, she confronted the woman with raised voice. Philin was quick to intervene and blamed her for what happened. Sizzly needs dresses, so he let her wear her dress. After all, why would she need it when she's not pregnant? Sizzly, sly as she is, dramatically apologized with crocodile tears. Philin immediately took her side to console her. Ignoring Leela, he ordered the maids for hot tea and warm towels. Seeing as she was being treated like an outsider, she left the salon. Misha loyally followed her. For days she avoided Philin and Sizzly, the gossips of the servants almost growing out of proportions. Amidst the intrigues of Philan's infidelity, Leela remained steadfast to her duties. She took care of the necessary preparations for the upcoming event, until the day of their departure came. Seeing Philin for the first time after days of not encountering him didn't make her feel fonder for her fiancé. Rather, she felt relieved when he declared he'll be riding with Sizzly. Their journey to the capital ended without mishaps. However, upon arrival, people went abuzz upon seeing Leela alighting the carriage by herself, while on another carriage, Duke Philin was with another woman who's pregnant, and he's assisting her alight with utmost care. Not wanting to deal with the gossipers and onlookers, Leela decided to went straight ahead to her quarters, only to find out that she was placed in a room with large windows. Rain often occurs in the capital, and Leela's scared of thunder. Having large windows in her room is problematic for her. Even if she doesn't want to cause any unnecessary trouble, she asked the maids if she can be transferred to a much smaller room. Of course, the maids were shocked to her request. The size of a room assigned to nobility depends on one's social status. The higher one is in rank, the bigger and grander the room. Despite their protests, Leela got her room changed. But Philin took it negatively. She was accused of deliberately changing her room to be right next to where Sizzly would be staying, to intimidate her. Sizzly intervened with their heated exchange and act like an understanding madam. Then as sleekly she worms her way into things, she smoothly proposed to Philin that she'll be moving in his room, instead slyly using the excuse that she can't sleep alone and that she loves staying at Philan's side. Enraged and hurt, Leela decided to take a walk to cool her head and ease her heart. Misha, her ever-loyal maid, went to accompany her. The walk did her good, and in no time she's back to her calm and collected self. Her maid felt happy upon seeing her usual smile. Feeling at ease, Leela decided to go back to their lodgings when she happens to witness an actual extortion. Duty as a noble urged her to meddle, which ended up in violence when she instructed her maid to call forth an officer. As she was about to get stabbed, a handsome man with blue hair and eyes of the same color defended her. His swordsmanship is on par to none. Even when he was deflecting the man's knife, the way he held her was gentle. The incident ended swiftly, and the man scuttled away like a scared dog. Leela stared at the man who saved her and wondered who among the noblemen near her age does she know who have the physical description such as the man in front of her. She's certain that he is not an ordinary individual. The way he carries himself, and the expensive clothes he wears, though simply made, exudes elegance and shows quality. Turning to her, the man casually scolded her for being careless. However, she proved him wrong by showing him that she can defend herself. By swiftly flicking her wrist, she was able to point the end of her fan at his throat. Without him being able to deflect it, he realized that her fan was custom-made, with a pointed blade hidden on its flap that emerges on the edge when folded and used in defense. When the man apologized for his misjudgment of her abilities, she refused to accept it and explained that she should be the one thanking him. Talking to the man who saved her, she mentioned that she designed the weapon herself. Genuine admiration crossed the man's face. Exchanging pleasantries with the man, she once again thanked him and said her goodbyes. She decided to visit the guard post and report the incident, but since she is a girl, the guard nonchalantly told her to write the report, sensing that the man was not taking her seriously. Leela mentioned that perhaps it would be better if she reports it to the emperor himself. The man immediately righted his posture and listened to what she has to say. Done with the report, Leela and her maid Misha headed back to their lodgings only to sense someone secretly following them. Assertive by training, Leela confronted her stalker, only to see that it was the handsome man with blue hair. He wanted to know how Leela knew that the man was committing extortion on the young girl. How was she able to identify the right interest for borrowed money? Such knowledge is not commonly known by women, especially those at her age, since women were not meant to rule a territory. Explaining her situation as something that she just happens to know made the man smirk. Knowing that she's unwilling to divulge anything about her, the man respectfully said his goodbyes using her full name with honorifics. Lady Leela Thebessa. The way he addressed her made her look back, only to see that the man has gone. Back at their lodgings, Leela wondered how the man knew her and which family does he belong to. Misha pointed out that Leela is popular among the upper echelons and he probably saw the crest on her fan. She even offered to try and find out from which the family the handsome man was. But Leela refused. She can sense, based from his demeanor and the quality of his clothes, that he is not from a mere baron or count's family. She'll surely see him, if her hunch is correct, that his family is of high status, because they will be invited at the enthronement party. The sound of an arriving carriage made her look out the window. Philin has arrived and dropped by, addressing her casually. She reminded him to use honorifics as he requested, but he sarcastically retaliated that her life must be sad because she is inflexible. Not buying his provocation, she just said that she's following the rules he set, as if it was the most normal thing to do. He mentioned that he bought cake, and when she thought it was for her, Philin outright denied it and bluntly said it was for Sizzly. If Leela wanted cake, she can always buy one for herself. The devious woman, while enjoying Philan's treat, asked if he bought one for Leela. When he said he didn't, she voiced out her concern for the other lady, saying that she's like family to her. Making up a fake custom which she said was from their kingdom, she made one of the servants send some cake to Leela's quarters. Leela, upon receiving the gift, thought that Philin bought her one, even though she highly doubts it, because she knows Philin to be someone who is clueless with the feeling of others. She opened the cake box, only to be mortified to see that it was a crushed leftover cake, obviously not sliced from, but leftovers from directly forking the cake. Custom or not, to give someone something a person directly ate on is outright violation of decorum and respect. Hurt beyond words, she instructed the butler to throw away the cake. She went to the outfit room to cool her head, staring at their matching outfits as a couple. Leela tried her best to think of a way to appease her raging emotions. True enough that the situation is not favorable for her, but as custom dictates, she must show proper etiquette and still attend with him. Misha, trying to appease her mistress, and suggested embroidering a handkerchief for the duke to use. Their kingdom has a custom. Noblemen who are attending an important event should wear the handkerchief embroidered by their special someone or betrothed. Misha's suggestion triggered a happy memory from Leela. The day before Philin left for the battlefield, Leela embroidered a handkerchief for him as lucky charm for his safe return. He playfully accepted it and promised to return safely to her side. Remembering the old times made Leela reconsider her hatred for her fiancé. He might be attending to another woman as of late, but they are still betrothed. She spent a sleepless night embroidering for him. Even when her fingers got stabbed by the needle for 22 times, she continued. As if blessed by good graces, she was able to finish the handkerchief, and by Misha's urging, she went to Philin's quarters to give it to him. But Sizzly had other plans. As Leela was about to hand Philin the handkerchief she worked on, Sizzly waved hers to Philin, complaining as to why he left it behind. Sizzly, despite being a mistress, someone who is supposed to stay in the shadows and not flaunt the infidelity she and Philin committed, overstepped her boundaries and decided to embroider handkerchiefs for the couple in behalf of Leela. The woman's unsolicited action is an outright assault of her position as fiancé. Philin, blatantly siding with the woman, was her last straw. Infuriated with his bias, she resignedly let him do what he wants. However, she warned him he can't tell them that she made the handkerchief. She doesn't plan to own up to something she didn't make. Walking away without looking back, she headed to the carriages on standby and boarded the first carriage she saw. The coachman told her it was the duke's, but because she's seething with anger and she's feeling hurt, she told him that the duke can board another carriage. She instructed the coachman to bring her somewhere quiet. In Sizzly's room, the snake of a woman is currently working her way into ousting Leela. Using the incident that just transpired, she voiced out her fear for her baby. She fears Leela might mistreat their child once she's given the custody to take care of it. Philin hugged the woman to console her. He foolishly promised the woman that if ever that happens, he'll kick Leela out of the duchy, not seeing the malicious smirk from her face. Leela found herself in a vast, well-kept field with a lone grand tree on its center. Alone, she wept. No one would see her there for sure. However, as if fate is playing tricks, the attractive man with blue hair and blue eyes was there right in front of her, offering her his handkerchief, looking immaculately handsome in expensive garb. She remembered him as the man who helped her recently in an extortion incident. Feeling embarrassed that he'd seen her in such a shameful situation, she tried to avert her face and rub her eyes with her own hands. The man gently held her wrist. He reached out and wiped her face using his handkerchief. Sitting down beside her, he asked her what's wrong. Etiquette drove Leela to answer it vaguely with another question. She asked the man if he'd solve it if she told him. To her surprise, the man said he would, if it is within his powers. She was glad with his answer. As they were talking, she noticed the handle of his sword. Just like Philin's, it shows sign of being constantly used. Seems like the man's sword fighting skills isn't just for show. The man suddenly addressed her. When she turned to look at him, she was surprised when he pushed something in her mouth. Strawberry candy. The man told her that when he is feeling down, he takes strawberry candy. He hopes that it works for her too. Coincidentally, looks like it does. For some reason, tasting the strawberry in her mouth made her feel a bit lighter. The man's eyes unexpectedly fell on the box beside her and asked what does it contain. Leela followed where he is looking at and felt mortified that unknowingly, she brought the box containing the handkerchief she embroidered. Ashamed with the content of the box, she abruptly grabbed it, making its flap accidentally open, and the shameful handkerchief fell. The man picked it up and scrutinized it. When she said that she's going to throw it, the man asked her to give it to him. When she said that it was something useless, he held her hand and kissed the needle wounds for him. The handkerchief is precious because she worked on it. She blushed profusely, and an awkward yet cozy mood filled the air. Seeing as it is inappropriate, the man changed topic and asked Leela about a taxation problem he can't resolve. When she pointed out that it is best suited to ask an officer about it, the man kindly asked her to indulge him. The topic was quite absorbing, that it was quite way past afternoon when they stopped with their discussion. The man thanked her and found their conversation enjoyable. She felt the same. However, it is such a pity she doesn't know his name, she politely asked him. He gave her a playful smile, asking her if she really would like to know. Would she like to guess? After all, he guessed hers. Not wanting to lose to his challenge, she gave names from families she knew had sons near her age, but alas, none of them were correct. Feeling a tad defeated, she asked for a hint. The man then pointed to his hair. The color of his hair is hint enough, he said. Staring at his hair, Leela still found herself clueless. The man laughed and playfully commented that her information about the aristocrats is quite lacking. Seeing her pouting drove the man to console her by saying that she has until the banquet to guess who he is. Upon mention of the banquet, Leela's demeanor changed. The man asked if she doesn't like the banquet. She honestly told him yes. When he asked her why, she immediately got lost in thought. Phylan's decision to keep the woman he impregnated is already widespread. If they come as a couple without handkerchiefs, they would be the center of gossip. Frustration and dread filled her thoughts that she unconsciously bit her lower lip. She was startled to see the man in close proximity as he tries to touch her lips to stop her from biting it. Seeing her reaction, he apologized, but since he did nothing wrong, she told him there's no need for it. Sensing that he's waiting for an answer, she told him that she's feeling a bit hesitant to attend because she's worried she might make mistakes. It is her first societal debut, after all. The man told her that war has just ended. A lot of people who were cooped in their residence would be making their debut in society as well. He made her feel at ease that she's not the only one who is a newbie in the banquet. She found his words sweet and voiced out that he must be popular with the ladies. The man did not deny it, but he brazenly told her that he is doing his best to win the interest of just a single lady, all the while staring at her and obviously letting her know that it is she whom he is talking about. Dusk is coming. She decided to walk back to her carriage. The man gallantly escorted her. As they were walking, she mentioned the handkerchief and asked if the man is really interested in keeping it. The man asked her if she doesn't want to give it to him. Leela explained that the handkerchief bears the crest of her fiancé. He cannot really use it in public. The man playfully whispered in her ear that he's going to keep it hidden in a place that only he can see. Feeling his breath on her ear sent sensations she can't explain. She doesn't hate it though. Truth be told, it made her feel warm and light at the same time. A call from her maid prompted her to move forward, only to be stopped yet again by the man. Holding her by the hand, he asked if she would like to be an official. Treating his question as making fun of her, she felt cross. But the man asked her again. She saw the seriousness in his voice. Custom and law aside, if she's given a chance to be an official, she'll gladly accept it. The man showed an approving smile and told her that he hopes she won't forget her answer. That afternoon, in one of the civil offices of the empire, a bespectacled red-headed man in his lonesome is already swamped with work. Exasperation and fatigue are evident on his face. A knock on his door made the man give a snide remark at the newcomer who opened his door, despite his high status. It was Emperor Kalyan di Zeppel Yuthvelda. The red-headed man is Beer, the emperor's sole assistant. Constantly swamped with work, he complained to his emperor that he needed more assistant. The emperor agreed and planned to recruit additional adjutants soon, but not by appointment and referral by other nobles. As per the custom, they will hold an examination in a month's time to choose the next set of officials. Beer was explicitly instructed to include the phrase women can apply and to make it easy to see. The day of the banquet came. Leela's maids dressed her in the silver dress that she custom ordered to match with Phylan's suit. As she was treading the halls to meet with Philin at the carriage, Sizzly, holding a wine glass, coincidentally bumped into her and spilled the contents of her glass on her dress. Horrified, her maids hurried to remove the stain, but it was hopeless. Not wanting to make Philin late, she gave instructions to the footman on duty to inform the Duke to go ahead to the banquet. She then ordered her maids to get her a similar dress, even though it isn't silver, and to bring her shoes and jewelries to match. She ignored Sizzly, who was trying to get her attention. Leela, who hastened her preparations, was rather late for the banquet. To be late for a banquet hosted by someone of higher status is an outright breach of etiquette and decorum among nobles, prepared to make the necessary explanations for her tardiness, so as not to damage the reputation of the Duke. Leela was surprised to see that the banquet hasn't started yet. Unbeknownst to her, the Emperor, upon learning that Duke Philin Williot has come alone, delayed his entrance, halting the start of the banquet. The Emperor knew of her existence not too long ago, when he was investigating the duchy of the Williots. He was intrigued by how their mansion, businesses, and low-ranking nobles under their direct management continued to thrive after the demise of the Duke and Duchess. Philin, their one and only son, doesn't look that capable and intelligent. He wondered what kind of assistant or man was taking care of their family business. With further prodding, he discovered that it was a girl, who recently just come of age, who's managing their resources. Leela Thebessa, the rumored illegitimate daughter of Count Thebessa that the Williots bought to be their own daughter. Other nasty gossipers even talk about her as the young mistress of the late Duke. Talking to her made the Emperor believe that she deserves better opportunities than getting stuck with her foolish fiancé. Reaching inside, Leela released a relieved sigh. Philin walked up to her and was none too happy with her late arrival. She noticed that he's wearing a handkerchief in his breast pocket, and it looked quite old. He explained that it was his mother's embroidery. Upon mention of the late Duchess, Leela's expression clouded. It did not escape Philin's eyes that he asked her, "Why is she looking that way?" She explained that she misses the late Duchess. As a way of consoling her, Philin offered his arm to escort her to the center of the banquet hall as they await the arrival of the Emperor. Asking Philin why it hasn't started yet, she discovered that the Emperor delayed it for some reason. All of a sudden, the trumpet signaled the start of the event. The Emperor has entered the hall. To Leela's surprise, it was the man who saved her and whom she talked to that afternoon. Looking back, she recalled that the imperial family was said to be the caretaker of the blue dragon crest. Staring at the man, she understood why the blue of his hair and eyes were the obvious hint. The Emperor offered a toast to his guests, opening the hall for dancing. Even if she's not so fond of it, Leela accepted Philin's invitation to dance. She can do it well, but she needs to put up a front that things are still going great between her and her fiancé, despite the rumors circulating about them. Concentrating on the step, rather than the dance itself, Philin teased her that she can't dance. In retaliation, she pointed out he's not that much of a great dancer, but he smoothly rebuts it by saying his skills were enough to lead her. After one song, they headed to the refreshment table to get some drinks. Philin was held up by Duke Tenvert. Feeling stuffy, she excused herself and headed to the balcony, only to get held up by other noble women who masked their curiosity with well wishes. When talks of producing an heir arose, a lady with flaming red hair crudely commented that Leela need not bother herself with it anymore. The Duke has an heir already with another woman, and that she hails from a royal family, a perfect match for a duke of high stature. Said lady was Countess Byzantine, former Sophia Hudlin. She was once a candidate for Philin's wife. At that time, she would often bully and hurt Leela. One time, the bullying became too physical. Sophia slapped Leela straight on the face that it left a mark. To appease the Williots, Sophia's father gave astronomical sum as hush money. Right after Leela was declared as Philin's fiancé, Sophia was married to Count Byzantine. Not wanting to lose to Sophia's crude remarks, Leela coolly retaliated by pointing out that indeed, the woman was from a royal family bloodline. However, it's a fallen one. Thus she is no more than someone who has lower status than a commoner. To say that she is more well suited to be the Duke's wife is an insult to the duchy. What matters is the present. She's the fiancée, and soon she'll be a duchess. Something that Sophia will forever covet but will never get in her lifetime. Excusing herself in a manner that showed impeccable grace, she left the gossipers. Alone in the balcony, she let out a sigh, voicing out that she wanted to go home already and face the documents, rather than fight with words amongst the other noble women. A playful comment that the night is still young and there she is, wanting to go home, made her turn around to see the emperor has joined her. As custom, she greeted him with his title. The emperor felt a bit sad with how formal she is treating him. Steering the conversation in a casual way, the emperor inquired if she's enjoying the party. Not wanting to sound rude, she tried an affirmative reply, only to be contradicted, using her earlier utterance that she wanted to go home. The emperor was the same. He'd rather work than party. Enjoying the night view, the emperor once again hinted that he likes her. Wondering why, she asked him what he sees in her, to which he replied one does not need a reason to like someone. In the midst of their tete-a-tete, one of the emperor's aides summoned him inside. She tried to stand up from her seat to give the emperor a respectful bow. As she did so, she tripped and almost fell face first, had he not caught her. Steadying her and making sure she's all right, the emperor took his leave. Wondering what kind of gossip would arise if someone had seen such spectacle, the door of the balcony opened, revealing Philin as he asked her why is she cheating on him. Philin, seeing the close proximity that she and the emperor shared moments ago, interpreted it as a clandestine affair, explaining to him that it was just the emperor helping in her plight, raised another issue. He complained that she never smiled at him the way she smiled at the emperor, feeling frustrated. She pointed out that his recent actions does not merit any reason for her to smile. Suspecting that it was because of Sizzly, he reasoned out that he is just taking care of her, because of his child in her womb, just like before. He promised Leela that he'll kick her out once the baby was born. Fed up with his words, Leela voiced out her doubts and told him that she finds it hard to trust him, the way he treats Sizzly. It seems as if he is making her into a duchess. When she asked Philin to prove his words, the men foolishly dragged her with him and approached the emperor in the great hall, asking him to bless their marriage. Foolish Philin was oblivious of the fact that if a major event just transpired, it is customary to wait for 3 months as grace period before asking for marriage approval. Seeing as the Duchy of Wiliot will suffer humiliation, Leela intervened and made it appear as if the Duke, out of his urgency to marry his fiancée, forgot the custom. Her actions gained positive reactions from the nobles. Not only did she silence the rumors circulating that their engagement is in shambles, Philin was viewed in a positive light by the gossipers as a loyal betrothed who is smitten by his fiancée. In the emperor's eyes, she's an upright lady who didn't let the reputation of her intended to sink in the gutter. Not wanting to let Leela's efforts go to waste, the emperor excused himself and promised Philin that he'll give them his blessing at a proper venue. Of course, he had other plans. He can't let the bright young lady be shackled to a foolish man. He made plans to instruct Beer to hasten the examinations for the recruitment of new royal officials. Riding the carriage on their way home, Philin was in sour spirits. He's blaming Leela for the embarrassing situation. She's filled with disbelief at how immature his thinking was. Not wanting to incite his illogical anger any further, she just reasoned out that she's not gifted with precognition with what he was about to do at that moment. Reaching the ducal mansion, Sizzly was at the front door, her engorged belly in full splendor for anyone to see. Seeing her, Philin alighted the carriage without assisting Leela. Witnessing her fiancé gave the woman he impregnated with warm embrace. Leela wonders if she still can believe his promise of marriage. The next day, Leela is swamped with work she delayed due to the preparations for the banquet. She was delayed even further for attending said enthronement party. Her room, which also serves as her office, was abuzz processing the documents. She missed her meals, that at dinner time, her attendant reminded her that she needs to eat. Stressed, as she was processing another urgent document, Sizzly brazenly barged in her office, asking her to buy baby things. She casually reminded reminded the woman that she's not a handmaiden, but Sizzly maliciously hinted that she's in the same position as a handmaiden, since she'll be the stepmother of the child she is carrying in her womb. It was an outright insult that deserved retaliation, else her position as future lady of the house will be trampled upon. In calm tones, she reminded the woman that she has no right to demand things of her, that no matter how she acts like a princess, her status is on par with a commoner. She has no last name, and her kingdom has already fallen. As it stands, she will be taken care of until she gives birth to the child. Soon right after, she'll be driven away from the mansion, as Philin promised. Seeing the shock that filled her face, it seems like Philin hasn't told Sizzly that she can't stay at the mansion forever, doing and demanding as she pleases. Maintaining her composure, she opened the door of her office and ordered the woman out. Exasperation and fatigue took its toll on her. Instructing her maid to clean the sofa that Sizzly sat on, she went to her bed chambers to nap, but her exhaustion must have been too much for her stamina, that she ended up sleeping. Still drowsy with sleep, she was surprised to see Philin by her bedroom door. Seeing his face, she has an inkling of what he was about to say. As expected, he callously confronted her about Sizzly. He berated her for putting Sizzly into her rightful place, not minding how the woman disrespected her. Still believing in his promise just last night, she reminded him that they are betrothed. His next statement ended all her hopes of reconciling with him. He slammed it into her face that she's not his wife yet, that working for the Williots for 10 years must have gotten into her head. He made her feel that she's not part of the family, despite her service and loyalty to the late Duke and Duchess. Resignedly, she declared that she won't be working for the duchy anymore. When Philin rebuked her and called her irresponsible, she pointed out that he's been ignoring his duties and has been dumping all work to her. Fed up, she told him it's about time he works for the duchy, since it is part of his responsibilities as the new Duke of the Williots. Handing him the family stamp, she left him alone in the office. Even when a maid tried to hand her letters from the solicitors, she instructed the maid to give it to Philin. Pride drove Philin to face the papers he abhors. At first, he thought it was impossible for him to deal with the proposals, but foolishly, he thought that Leela did a sloppy job, only seeing the lengthy preparations and the amount being spent on the maintenance of the duchy. He failed to see the significance of each approved proposal. Haughtily, he made himself believe that he can make Leela succumb to his will. Document after document, Philin discovered that it's not that simple, and realized he needed to cross-reference to past documents so he can make a sound judgment on things. Ringing for the keeper of keys, he requested for the studies. As he was on his way out of the office, Sizzly came barging in, slinking her arm like a snake to his flank and asking where he is going. When he explained he is about to work on some documents, she sweetly complained that with Leela's dumping the work on him, they won't be having any time together. Giving in to Sizzly's temptation, he let the woman stay with him as he processed the documents. Alas, no work was done. The next morning, Leela is starting to get bored. Used to working from sunrise till sundown, she wondered what she can do now that she has free time in her hands. Reading came to mind. She rang for the keeper of keys to borrow the key to the study, only to find out that it was in Philin's possession. She planned to forget her desire to read when the butler informed her that Baron Wizard has an urgent message from the magical dial. As she dreaded, Philin failed to make the necessary preparations for the flood. The situation in the provinces is becoming dire. It's already midday. Further delay would only worsen the situation. Even if she doesn't want to meddle, it doesn't mean that she'll ignore the people who are depending on the duchy to help them in times of need. She went to Philin's chambers only to be greeted disrespectfully by Sizzly, who strongly hinted that she and Philin did something sensual the other night, thus Philin is still asleep. However, Philin intervened and asked Leela what is it that she needs to merit a visit in his chambers. Meanwhile, at the royal palace's civil office, Beer noticed the emperor staring at an embroidered handkerchief. Said handkerchief is the one he received from Lady Thebessa on that fateful day when they encountered each other. Showing the handkerchief with pride to Beer made the redhead adjutant ask the emperor if there's something wrong with his sight. Feeling offended in behalf of Leela, the emperor clumsily kicked the stacked documents and sarcastically apologized for his flawed vision. Getting the message, Beer let it slide and asked the emperor about serious matters. He finished preparing the questions for the civil officer's examination, where they will be choosing the emperor's new adjutant, and was wondering if the questions were hard enough. Skimming through the document that Beer handed him, the emperor ripped it apart, instructing Beer to think of harder questions. At the Williot's duchy, Philin haughtily told Leela that he already solved the matter that Baron Wizard was worried about. He even drove Leela away, telling her that he won't be needing her assistance in any of the documents, even in the future dealings, regarding the business of the duchy. Left with nothing to do, it was quite fortunate that Leela's maid heard about the news from the capital, that exams for the emperor's next adjutant has been posted. Even women are allowed to take the exams. Remembering the conversation she had with the emperor, whom she doesn't know at that moment, she wondered if it was somewhat connected. Excitedly, she made haste for the National Library to find materials she can study. Reaching the library, Leela found herself staring at the books on the shelf, wondering which would be included in the examination. She was about to reach for a book when another hand intercepted her. Looking back, she saw the emperor. He good-naturedly suggested books, but Leela has read every book he suggested. The emperor considered revising the examination once more to elevate its difficulty. Continuing with her search of a book to read, Leela was surprised when the emperor asked for her assistance. Said assistance was at the kingdom's marketplace. Still skeptical what he needs of her, she found herself being privy to the emperor's purchase of seeds. She intervened and called the emperor by his incognito first name, Carl, when the merchant started tricking him into buying quilt seeds. Quilt seeds can thrive during the rainy seasons, contrary to what the merchant said. Fearing he might get arrested for his folly, the man gave the bag of seeds for free. He then ran away. Leela planned to chase after him, but Carl stopped her. His guards are already on their way to apprehend the scam seller. The emperor suddenly commended her for her knowledge of seeds, to which she humbly cited it as simple information to learn. Continuing with their market tour, the emperor disclosed to Leela the real reason for their trip that day. He is looking for a seed of a specific plant, and he was hoping she could help him. After Philin openly discarded her, and showing that he doesn't need her, hearing the emperor openly ask for her help made her heart swell. Unconsciously, she gave him a smile that can melt hearts. Carl, who is used to women, felt something warm fill his chest. He knew her smile is beautiful, but he wasn't prepared to receive such stimulus at that moment. Unable to control his feelings, he just grabbed her hand and started walking. Leela doesn't seem to mind, while Carl is totally affected by their proximity, worried for her safety. He admonished her for being totally unaware and defenseless. Testing her, he even asked what if he is looking for a plan to kill someone. She told Carl she trusted him, not knowing that her reply greatly affected him so, in the romantic sense. Roaming around the marketplace, they ended up in the largest shop located in the green road of the market. Said area is known to sell all sorts of plants, seeds, and arcane items. Looking around, a necklace with an eye-catching pendant caught her attention. It looks quite familiar, but she can't clearly recall where she saw it. Carl called forth a store attendant when he noticed her interest on the necklace. Upon brief introduction, they discovered that the necklace was in fact a magical item that alters the physical appearance of one specific body part at will. When Carl asked if she wanted it, she truthfully said no, she's curious where she saw it, but she's not interested to make a purchase. Not finding what the emperor is looking for, they decided to leave and call it a day. Walking back, Carl handed her a box. He bought the necklace. She tried to refuse, but he stubbornly said that she should accept it by imperial order. Parting ways with Leela, Carl reminded her that she should learn to avoid apologizing for every little thing. She should learn to appreciate things more. Say thank you instead. Going back to the duchy, her maid, Sarah, asked if the man she's with was someone of higher status than her. She honestly told her that it was His Imperial Majesty, horrified of her companion just just moments ago. Her maid blurted out that he's a murderer. She immediately stopped her maid and warned her that she can be arrested for defamation. Truth be told, the current emperor was labeled a tyrant and murderer. Rumor has it that to ascend the throne, he killed all his family members, including his father. However, she can't really believe the rumors. They are bound to either get exaggerated or watered down. Arriving at the duchy, Leela was aghast upon seeing the servants busy moving the lavish gifts and dresses into the house. Stationed at the front door, the butler informed her that Sizzly, addressed as young lady, purchased them all by approval of the Duke. Skimming the invoice, she reeled with the amount that was splurged. It was half the annual allocation of the duchy. But as she already washed her hands off the duchy's business, she ignored it and handed the invoice back to the butler. Her maid, having alighted the carriage and carrying the books she purchased, asked where she could bring the books. It was when Philin intervened, disapprovingly commenting on her purchases. She explained that she needed it for the management exams. He scoffed at her, calling her efforts wasteful. When she stonewalled and stood her ground, Philin challenged her to a bet. If she passed the exams, he'll grant her one single wish, whatever it may be. However, if she failed, she'll have to respectfully apologize to Sizzly for everything she's done to her in the past. Fired up, with her pride and honor on the line, Leela immersed herself with studying. Even when doubt came knocking, questioning if she can really pass, she just brushed it off. She inspired herself by remembering the trust that the Emperor has given her. She doesn't want to disappoint him. Wanting to concentrate on her studying, she decided to stay at the capital, letting Philin and Sizzly go back to their territory. But Philin had other plans. Summoning her outdoors, he insisted that she come back with him to their territory and aid him with the inspection. He is concerned that misunderstanding might arise if he faced Baron Wizard by himself. Seeing that it was a sound argument, she agreed to come back with him, all because she's worried about the reputation of the duchy. Philin was sulking as he faces the loads of documents he needs to read and study. Leela was stubbornly not taking the hint that he wants to give her back the role of managing the duchy's business. She's not even pretty. What is she good at if not for managing the territory? Sizzly sneakily wormed her way and offered to help. Philin was happy with her offer, even though he really doesn't plan to make her work, since she won't have any idea how to run the duchy because she's not from the Empire. Still, compared to Leela's outright disregard of his plight, Sizzly's effort to help him was way better. As if it was her plan all along, Sizzly brazenly chose to help with their wedding preparations. The day of their departure for the Wiliot territory came. Leela gave instructions to the maids of their lodgings in the capital to wait for her to come back. She won't be staying long at the territory. As she was boarding the carriage, she was surprised to see Philin waiting by its door. He wanted to discuss the wedding preparations. She was mortified to know that Philin has given the task to Sizzly, openly detested by the idea. She thornily pointed it out to Philin that it may be all right in the usurped kingdom of Mulis to let the mistress take care of wedding preparations of the main wife. However, they are the noblemen of Carden. To make Sizzly, the woman he impregnated who is not his betrothed, a member of the fallen kingdom, to take care of her wedding preparations is totally unheard of. She'll be the laughingstock of the aristocrats. Philin alighted the carriage, fuming with rage that he can't bend her to his will. He transferred to the other coach, where Sizzly is. Seeing as Philin is annoyed with his fiancé, Sizzly incited his anger even further by saying that Leela must be looking down on his authority, not knowing any better. Philin foolishly decided to be stern with his fiancé. Reaching the duchy, Sizzly proudly walked with the Duke as if she's the wife, accepting the greetings of their servants. Leela was about to enter the mansion when Baron Wizard intercepted her, asking for her opinion, but Philin rudely interrupted them, callously accusing the Baron of ignoring his authority as head of the duchy. If that isn't enough, Philin clearly forbade the Baron from further seeking Leela's help, obviously treating her as an outsider. However, when the day of inspection came, Leela kept her end of their agreement and accompanied Philin. A misjudgment of a kid that addressed her as lord of the territory almost instigated a disagreement between her and Philin. However, with careful maneuvering, she was able to clear up the misunderstanding. Going home, Philin once again coerced her into quitting her plans of taking the civil exams, but she stood her ground and told him that she plans to take it no matter what. That night, she made preparations to depart the next day. Waiting by an inn, the rainy season has started. Leela was stranded and had to wait for 4 more days to depart for the capital. However, on the 3rd day, bad news arrived. The dike is leaking. Flood has affected the crops and the people. The duchy is currently being bombarded by requests for help from the lower-ranking nobles. To top it all, help seems to be taking forever. Feeling responsible, she left the inn. She came back to the duchy to find it in chaos. Philin in a stalemate with his usual indecisiveness. Hearing him prioritize the repair of the dike drove Leela to take action. She first gave orders to evacuate the townspeople, calling for the knights of the duchy. She ordered them to aid in the evacuation process. She ordered carriages so that the injured can ride it. She instructed the maids to open the mansion and use it as temporary shelter for the evacuees. She called for physicians to tend to the injured. When Philin protested about the dike and crops, she told him that the dike and crops can be mended and replanted, but dead people cannot be revived once lost. After giving out orders, Leela apologized to the Duke for overstepping her authority. She is ready to face the repercussions should any mishaps occur. People praised the lady for her speedy action. They even commended her ability to prioritize things. Everyone was wishing she'd be a duchess soon so she could continue to take care of the duchy. Using her little office once more, she discovered, upon Baron Wizard's report, that the dike's maintenance had been halved. The materials were adjusted to lesser quality. All of it were the Duke's idea. Concerned about the duchy, Leela made plans to talk to Philin about the territory's management. She wasn't aware that he was not in the best of moods after hearing people praise his fiancé. Seeking Philin to have a word with him, Leela found him at the practice room. He seemed to have just finished a sparring session and was about to head out when she arrived. But as soon as she started to discuss the issues that Baron Wizard disclosed to her, Philin gravely gave her an ultimatum to stop meddling with the affairs of the duchy, callously reiterating that she's not a Williot. He considers her actions as outright belittling him, that if she continues with what she's doing, he won't forgive her. Deciding to stay inside her room, Leela heard the grave news from her maid. Due to the recent events of the flood, people praised the way she acted on the problem and were wishing that she's the lord of the duchy instead of Philin. Sadly, the dim-witted young duke believed that it was Leela who was spreading such rumors, losing his trust in her. She wondered, as she stared at the gloomy skies, why is he still expediting the marriage preparations? If that were the case, she opted to put aside all her worries considering his current attitude. The imperial qualifying examination is coming. She needs to prepare for her departure to the capital and condition her mind. However, as if fate must be playing tricks on her, no carriage was available on the day of her departure. It takes days to reach the capital. Spending another day at the duchy to wait for a carriage would mean that she'll surely miss the exam. The last carriage was being used by Philin and Sizzly. According to the footman on duty, Philin decided to bring Sizzly on an outing to relieve her of the stress she accumulated when the mansion was filled with evacuees. The day of the examination came. The emperor was in the fullest of moods and beer was taking the full brunt of it. As he reported the number of participants, the scowl on the emperor's face got worse. Lady Leela Thebessa hasn't arrived yet, and there's barely 30 minutes left before the exam starts. Still not believing that Leela would miss the exam, the emperor decided to facilitate it himself. Upon his arrival, his mood worsened when he saw that the examinees were all men. Just as the exam was about to start, the door opened, revealing a sweating and short of breath Lady Leela Thebessa, announcing her arrival herself. She approached Beer to ask if she's already late. The red-headed aide assured her that she's not. The exam hall went abuzz with whispers from the men, obviously ridiculing the newcomer. Seeing the open discrimination, the emperor angrily pounded his fist on a table and ordered silence, marking the start of the exam. When the exam results came, the emperor had no doubts that Leela will pass. What surprised him was she ended up as the top one. Even the scholars who reviewed her exam gushed with excitement upon seeing such a gifted examinee. Some of them were begging beer to give Leela to their department. The emperor summoned Leela to inform her of the news. Seeing she was ecstatic, the emperor instantly offered her a position as his aide. Though she really likes to accept the position immediately, she respectfully declined. She needs to go back to the duchy to ask for Filance's permission, even when the emperor advised her to decide for herself, and reminded her that her fiancé recently acted on things without considering her feelings. She still chose to go home. Upon arrival at the duchy, Leela was welcomed by the servants. They expressed their happiness with her achievement. However, Philin was different. He congratulated her, but his voice was reeking with resentment and mockery. His disrespect of her abilities was too much that she spat right back at him. For the times he ignored her feelings when he brought in a woman he impregnated, Philin, enraged that she won't yield to his will that she should forget about being the emperor's aide, told her to leave the duchy. The servants panicked. A maid hurriedly advised Leela, in hushed tones, to apologize to Philin and admit she's wrong, but Leela had enough of his stupidity and callousness. Instead of apologizing, she announced the dissolution of their engagement. In her chambers, as Leela was preparing her departure, her maid Sarah is currently sorting her things. Much to the surprise of the maid, Leela instructed her to throw all her fancy things, including the heirloom hairpin that the late Duchess gave her. Seeing as her mistress have no plans of ever coming back, Sarah declared that she's coming with Leela. As expected, Leela declined. She can't actually afford a professional maid once she left the duchy. She'll start her life from scratch. However, the maid was relentless. She has no choice but to accept her sincerity. Watching from the window of his room, Philin saw Leela's things being brought out from the mansion. His butler informed him that Leela is throwing it all away. Contrary to Leela's decision, he told the butler to have all her things in storage, still believing that Leela would change her mind and come begging him to take her back. The servants are already feeling down with the separation, except the old butler. He is still hoping they'll get back together. He strongly believes that it is only their lady who is worthy of their master. Sizzly, who saw the commotion outside, heard the butler and brazenly approached a busy crowd. She got all thorny and barefacedly lashed out at a younger servant when she was addressed as little lady, claiming that she should be addressed as lady of the house since Leela is already leaving. Shamelessly, she rummaged through Leela's things that lay around waiting for storage, two contrasting bottles. The ones the Countess Tebessa gave Leela previously caught her fancy without showing any kind of restraint. She kept them for herself, believing that they were worth a lot of money. Meanwhile, a busy morning at the palace, the emperor was surprised to hear that Lady Leela Tebessa is seeking an immediate audience with him. Granting the sudden request, the emperor anxiously awaited her entrance. He gave her 3 weeks to think things over. It's only been less than 2 weeks since he last saw her. He wondered if her haste was because she decided to reject his offer. Contrary to his fears, Leela accepted the position of becoming his aide. Filled with joy though he was, it puzzled him to discover that she was staying at an inn. She seemed so unwilling to discuss her plight, that without prodding deeper in what she let slip, he instructed Baron Beer Delrant to find appropriate quarters for the lady. He also discreetly ordered him to investigate the current relationship status between Lady Tebessa and Duke Williot. She was hesitant to accept his offer in finding her a residence at first, but she relented when the emperor explained that it is part of her role to keep up appearances, including the quality of the residence she is currently staying at. At the duchy, Philin is conducting a meeting with the nobles within their territory. Even if Leela isn't around anymore, her name still comes up. The noblemen were impressed by her foresight, dealing with calamities that often hit their territories. One of the nobles raised an issue. They needed to hire a wizard. Situation of the duchy's territory became dire after Philin's management when he cut the budget for maintenance in half. Food supply is short. There's no way that the crops would thrive without the help of magic. Seeing that the Duke was hesitating, one of the participants of the meeting started to offer monetary aid if money is an issue, much to their disappointment. It was Sizzly whom the Duke is thinking of. He is hesitating to hire wizards into the manor, or even let them inside the territory, because Sizzly specifically told him not to, since she's afraid of them, using the excuse that she was possessed by bad magic conjured by a wizard during the fall of their kingdom. Contrary to the heavy atmosphere at the duchy, Leela's life as the Emperor's aide is off to a good start. At least at the moment, that is. Baron Delrand escorted her to her new residence near the palace. Handing her the key, he reminded her that it's an exclusive single copy. If she lost it, they will have to replace the whole heavy double doors of the residence. As they went it, Baron Delrand offered to help her move her things. After he explained that decorations for the interiors are almost finished, Leela politely declined his offer, explaining that she has a maid, and that her things aren't that many to begin with. Relieved to have lesser extra things to do, the redhead baron said his farewells. As he was departing, he reminded her that she is to report to the palace after a week's time. However, a week is too long for Leela. Even when she started embroidering a handkerchief, once again, her body seems to miss working non-stop. What triggered her handmade project was her maid's answer when she asked what kind of gift is best to give to someone if you plan to convey the sincerity of your heart. The maid suggested an embroidered handkerchief. Remembering that the Emperor is currently keeping the handkerchief meant for Philin, she decided it's about time she made an exclusive item for him. It will be her way of thanking him for everything he's done for her. But try as she might, embroidery isn't enough to keep her occupied. She itched to work and be even more productive. Not wasting any time at the manor, she decided to visit the palace and see if there's anything she can do to help Baron Delrand. He's been working non-stop by himself ever since the new emperor was throned. That day, she woke up early, just like she usually does at the Williots, to aid the late Duke and Duchess so she can pay attention to her embroidery before heading out. Arriving at the palace, it seems she came a little too early. The Emperor is yet to arrive. She was led to stay at the receiving area to wait for an audience with him. Left alone, she reminisced the times when she woke up too early at the duchy. The servants would scold her for not having a complete rest, despite the fact that she stayed up late the previous night, but they will always make sure she's served with warm tea before starting her day. She must have been missing them unconsciously, since she never got to say a proper goodbye to the servants. Because she started to tear up, someone gently held her shoulders and offered a handkerchief. It was the Emperor. Without asking about her plight, he looked at her kindly. As he apologized for the delay, he also told her that she needs to wait some more, because he is attending to some urgent matters. Left alone once more, she wondered what the kind gaze he gave her meant. Why was she so comforted with a mere handkerchief? When the Emperor came back to join her for a cup of tea, he joked about her inability to look at him, that the teacup must be better looking than he is. Out of embarrassment, she hurriedly told him that he is good looking enough, much to the Emperor's surprise and amusement. She was invited for breakfast, which they shared with the other aide, Baron Beard Delrand, with an ambience a stark contrast with what they have at the duchy. It was light, informal, and enjoyable. Compared to the light air they shared over breakfast, Sizzly was doing some sneaky dealings by the secluded part of the duchy's mansion, or so she assumed that the bottles she sequestered from Leela's things were worth anything. It wasn't worth as she assumed, but upon knowing its contents, Sizzly was able to come up with a dirty plan, which aims to erase any lingering feeling Philin may have for Leela. At the royal palace, after breakfast with the emperor, Baron Beer Durland was giving her a tour of the aide's office. As they tread the vast halls of the royal palace, Baron Delrand explained that their office is located just beside the emperor's. After briefing her of work schedule and making sure she's comfortable, Baron Delrand gave her first task. He gave her what seemed endless stacks of documents. He instructed her to arrange them in chronological order, then organize it by region and then by case. She was also requested to check the documents for any missing seal of approval. For some reason, Baron Delrand made a specific emphasis on not letting her go to the outer palace to get the seal. She's just to compile the documents and hand it to him, making sure that she's got the gist of everything for her first day at work. Baron Elrond went out. What Leela doesn't know was bad rumors had been spreading about her appointment, that she is having an illicit relationship with the emperor. Amidst the unsavory rumors, one name seems to be the stronghold of the nobles, someone whom the other noblemen confide with when they have some issues with the emperor's actions. It was none other than Duke Gilton. Said Duke was listening to the complaints of the nobles, but he was not going to act on it. At least not yet. On a day when Leela was caught doing work way past office hours, the emperor scolded her for neglecting her health. He was stern but was not callous. He reminded her that a female's stamina is naturally lesser than a male. It is important to take care of her health if she wants to keep on working without any problem. As she take it all in, the emperor noticed a slight air of indifference from her, as if a thin wall suddenly emerged between them. Unlike the time they were together at the market while they were looking for a specific plant. Thinking that she might be feeling distant because of the way he addresses her, the emperor asked for Leela's permission to call her by her first name. However, Lord Delrand was against it. If people heard the familiar way the emperor addresses the aide, who is the center of all the unsavory gossips circulating around the palace, the dirty chin wags of the nobles would skyrocket. As Lord Delrand was giving the emperor an earful, Hiltine, leader of the Crown Knights and known as the emperor's shadow, went straight in and reported the results of his ongoing investigation. When he left, Lord Delrand asked the emperor if he was still investigating the incident 10 years ago. The latter gave an affirmative nod. On a day that Leela is to submit her complete report, the chief chamberlain was there to greet her. But the way he addressed her made the emperor take offense, making him address Leela as Lord Tebessa, since she passed a qualifying exam as the emperor's aide. When all was said and done, Raphael, the chief chamberlain, was sent back to his post. The emperor scrutinized Leela's report and was fully impressed by it. As a reward for her excellent work, he invited her to a meal, mistaking it for a staff treat. Instead of an exclusive invitation, she mentioned beer, Lord Delrand, and went to fetch him. The emperor noticed that she calls him by his first name, making him feel stuffy in the chest for some reason. Meanwhile, at the Williot's duchy, an invitation from a fellow noble of similar rank arrived. Philin, who was swamped with all the duke's work, begrudgingly accepted the invitation and decided to wear his ceremonial clothes. After all, he doesn't really know what kind of clothes to order, since it was Leela who always took care of their outfits. Looking back, Philin realized how hard must have it been for Leela. Aside from managing the mansion, she was swamped with the management of the duchy's affairs, not to mention that she's been taking care of his personal wardrobe. At the palace, over a hearty meal, Beer started to open up work matters, much to the emperor's annoyance. Even when the emperor whined about the work talks and prohibited it, Beer just continued. Over dinner, they solved the issue of giving compensation to the bereaved of the war veterans. But what of the orphans? Beer suggested to give them monetary support. But Leela was worried that it might attract thieves and that people might take advantage of them. They concluded to build an orphanage, and Leela was appointed to take care of the necessary documents to present it to the Council of Nobles. The next day, the busy office of the Emperor's aides became even more busy because of the new proposal for an orphanage and the upcoming victory party. Beer whined about the load of work. Leela voiced out that it would be better if they have an empress, since it is the empress who takes care of banquets and parties. Beer suddenly told her that the emperor does not plan to marry anyone, nor is he capable of marrying someone soon. Noticing his slip of the tongue, Beer left the office for an errand. Left alone, Leela can't help but think of the times she spent with the emperor, leading her to shamelessly imagine herself as his empress and fully supporting him in everything. Realizing the absurdity of her daydream, Leela shook her head and went on with writing the documents for the orphanage. At the duchy, amidst a flood of work on his desk, Philin asked his head butler about the preparations of his marriage with Leela. As expected, it is going smoothly, even if their relationship is currently almost non-existent. Still believing that she'll be returning to his side, he told the butler to keep her things as is. When the butler went out, he caught Sizzly shamelessly eavesdropping by the slightly open door. She didn't show even a morsel of embarrassment upon seeing the butler, and was close to boasting she eavesdropped when asked if she heard their conversation. Exasperated, as she tread the hall of the duchy's mansion, Sizzly was thinking of ways to eradicate Leela's influence on the duchy and on Phylan's life. At the royal palace, Leela was absorbed with looking for reference materials for orphanage structures. The emperor lent a hand and told her there was none, since it was the first time that the kingdom would build one. However, he freely lent his personal documents that he wrote when he was younger and was not the emperor yet. It surprised Leela to find that a small chamber exists in their office. It was where the emperor's personal manuscripts were kept. Entrusted with such an important document, and the task of writing a full proposal, Leela was fired up and determined not to fail the trust the emperor gave her. Going back to her residence, Leela scrutinized the emperor's personal documents while still in the carriage. Noticing the blood smears, she imagined the hardships that His Majesty experienced, growing up in a family that ignored him. Upon doing so, she recalled the bad times she experienced herself in the house of Thabessa as the illegitimate daughter. Feeling a bout of depression coming up, she shook it off and focused on the task that was given to her. Becoming the emperor's aide is top priority, and the childcare center is her first important task. The next day, Beer was frantic as the victory party is getting close. Her proposal was almost finished and was just needing the supporting documents from the other scholars. Since Beer was busy with other works, she was finally allowed to go out of the outer palace and seek the seal of approval to finalize her document. Left alone in the office, Beer pondered about Leela's difference to other nobles. He was used to being ridiculed by others because of his lowly origins, but the way Leela treated everyone equally, despite their social status, is a breath of fresh air. Rather than hating it, he's thankful for it. Realizing that he has been idling, Beer shook his head and went on with his workload. Meanwhile, outside their office, Leela was treading the hall leading to the outer palace when a group of noble ladies bumped into her. It made her lose her balance. The documents she was holding scattered on the floor. Some even made it near the noble ladies' feet, and they deliberately stepped on it with their shoes. Looking at the culprits, she recognized them as Sophia's acquaintances. The one acting as their leader was a blonde in a red dress named Lisa. Seeing as they have no plans of apologizing, she turned her villainous mode on and threatened to tell the emperor who ruined the documents he was expecting. Upon the mention of the emperor, the ladies apologized and hurriedly left. Lisa made a cryptic remark about Leela being a fake aide. Wondering what the noble ladies meant by that remark, she watched their receding backs as they walked away. Surprisingly, a helping hand appeared out of nowhere. It was the handsome white-haired knight named Hiltine. The documents were fixed with his help. Leela was able to make it in time and submitted to the emperor as scheduled. He started to scrutinize her document. It was well written. The only problem left was funding. Leela thought of something and reached out to gently tap him to get his attention when he suddenly grabbed her hand and noticed how rough it was. She made an excuse as falling by herself. The emperor even noticed the bleeding wound on her knee. that he got worried about her getting the bomb he keeps in his desk, he made her sit by the sofa and started to treat her wound, instructing her to remove her skirt as well. Not having an inkling if the request was malicious or not, Leela started to remove her skirt, albeit showing some shame. The emperor then scolded her for being clueless and defenseless. Not wanting to make the air more awkward as it is, since he is also affected by their close proximity, the emperor left Leela by herself to treat her wounds and went back to his desk. Finishing the application of the medicine on her wounds, she approached the emperor, invading his personal space. The emperor has yet to recover from being affected by their close interaction not too long ago, commented that she's too close, focused on what she wanted to convey. Leela failed to notice what he was saying. She went on and handed him her gift. Then she left in a hurry due to embarrassment. The emperor opened the box tied with blue ribbon. Inside was a carefully embroidered handkerchief with his dragon monogram. Seeing her latest embroidery, he noticed that it was way better than the one she previously made for her fiancé. The next day, with the party getting even nearer, the emperor's office got flooded by letters of invitation, asking to be his partner at the event. Not interested in any of the girls that sent him letters, the emperor ordered the chief chamberlain to reject all invitation. When he started to ask about the events of yesterday, if the chief chamberlain was aware how Lord Thebessa was injured, Hiltine, who appeared out of nowhere, intervened. After the chief chamberlain left, Hiltine gave the details of yesterday's events. Meanwhile, at the library, Leela was once again looking for reference materials and had too many books to carry. Fortunately, Beer came and helped her. On their way back to the office, Leela remembered the fake hate issue and asked Beer about it. Cornered, Beer told her of the rumors that most of the nobles believed that she cheated. Of course, Leela vehemently denied the allegations. Showing his support to Leela, he disclosed that the scholars were impressed by her exam answers and were clamoring for her to be designated in their department. As if sensing her remaining doubts, Beer told her that she's doing her job splendidly. She need not worry about the baseless rumors. Parting ways with her, Beer proceeded to the emperor's office and reported that the rumors finally reached Lord Thebessa's ears. Hearing the news, Beer was instructed to stop the rumors, even though he reminded his liege that it won't halt the gossipers from spreading the unsavory talks. The emperor agreed to Beer, but it was evident by the look in his eyes that he already had plans set in motion to quash the rumors. Setting aside the plans for ending the rumors, Beer presented the dispute between the Khan region of the empire and the Natusa kingdom. Khan has been known as haven for pirates, whilst Natusa houses a navy. Their dispute has been going on for quite some time, but at present, Khan made an outrageous request. Seeing the seriousness of the situation, Beer and the emperor got immersed in a meeting that lasted until late at night. Exhausted, the emperor went out to stretch his legs. As he looked out the window while walking the vast halls of the royal palace, he noticed that the light in the aide's office is still lit. It can't be Beer, since they just finished their meeting, so he guessed it was Leela. Wondering what she was working on, that she stayed working until late night, made him rush to the office. She was so immersed with what she was writing that he caught a glimpse of the document she was working on, asking her why she's composing a child care guide when the construction of the child care center is yet to be approved. She explained that the church, who is currently raising orphans, may benefit with a guide. Even he was impressed by her work. The emperor once again reminded Leela that staying up late and neglecting her health would be counterproductive. She ended her work and accepted his offer to walk her to her carriage. As they tread the royal palace's hall leading to the front door, the emperor mentioned the handkerchief she gifted him and sincerely thanked her for it. Seeing the blush that creeped up her face, he did not tease her any further. He showed her a list of names and made her choose something she likes best. Not clearly knowing his intentions at that time, she indulged him and seriously looked at the list. Estela, which meant star in the ancient language, was what she chose. The emperor was impressed by knowledge of the ancient language. He agreed that the name fitted her perfectly. When she tried to ask what was it for, all he told her was she'll know soon enough. That same night, Philin attended the party he was invited into. Said party was hosted by Duke Gilton. During dinner, the Duchess and their young son joined them. The kid accidentally dropped his eating utensil, that it made a loud noise. A stern look from the Duke made the Duchess and his son shook in fear. It was Duke Williot who easily voiced out that he doesn't mind the ruckus. Seeing as he is ready for a conversation, Duke Gilton asked Philin if the cancellation of his engagement with Lady Thebessa was true. As expected, he denied it. The follow-up question was obviously raised with malice. When Duke Gilton asked if the rumors about Lady Thebessa being the Emperor's mistress were true, shock filled Philin's face, making it evident that he wasn't expecting such rumors to be circulating about his fiancée. The next night, there was a thunderstorm at the capital. Worrying for his staff, the emperor decided to make rounds and send home those who stayed to work. As he was getting out of his office, he noticed that there's still light in the adjacent office's window. Knowing that it was Leela, he hastened to scold her, only to be greeted by an empty room. Assuming that Leela just forgot to extinguish the candle, he went around her desk only find her hiding underneath it. Her hair loosened from its ribbon as she hugged her knees to herself. As he scooted over to ask what's wrong, a peal of thunder startled her. It wasn't the thunder that scares her so, but the tragic memories associated with it. It was a stormy night when the late Duke and Duchess died on a carriage accident. Loneliness seems to attack her more vehemently during thunderstorms. Seeing that she's already crying, as if she's out of her wits, the emperor gently held her in his arms and told her to look at him. With hazy consciousness, she hugged him tighter and asked him to sing her a song. Ridiculous as the request was, he indulged her and sang her a lullaby. His voice was so soothing that Leela failed to fight the urge to sleep. She woke up on the couch covered by His Majesty's long coat, berating herself for her shameless act. She wondered aloud how would she face the emperor, his nonchalant voice telling her to just look at him, as if it's the most natural thing in the world, brought her back to her senses. After invading her personal space and making sure she's truly all right, the emperor told her to take the day off. He even went as far as providing her a new gown as change of clothes and giving her a ride on his horse. Before they arrived, Philin was already hounding Leela's residence, still believing that he has the right to meddle with her life. Philin was already making plans of getting rid of the residence. As he was helping her alight, the emperor sensed someone watching. Following his instincts, he saw Duke Williot hiding by a pillar near the gates of Leela's residence, glaring at Philin's direction. He made sure that he exudes the most threatening aura without Leela's knowledge. When the emperor has left, Philin tried to approach Leela, only to feel somebody else's blade on his throat. It was Hiltine, conveying His Majesty's message to Duke Williot that he must stop plaguing Lord Thebessa with his presence. Philin would have fought Hiltine had he not considered the public that might actually see the fight, and the fact that he was a royal knight and His Majesty's shadow. Seeing that Duke Williot has relented not to fight, Hiltine escorted him away from Lord Thebessa's residence. Unbeknownst to her, Duke Williot's sudden visit was due to Sizzly's scheming, telling him to bring her back to the duchy's mansion since she considered her as family, because she'll be the one playing the role of mother for her child. Inside her house, Leela received her maid's report that Duke Williot visited and was looking for her. An immediate dread filled her. The mere thought of returning to the suffocating home was enough to make her feel strangled. The day of the party came. Leela wore the aide uniform provided to her. Awkwardly, she greeted the emperor and Lord Delrant, and almost curtsied even when she was wearing pants. Before they faced the guests, the emperor reminded her to stand her ground. She soon discovered why. As the double doors of the hall's entrance opened, she immediately saw the man she hoped she'll never see, Andante Thebessa, the second son of Count Thebessa. He who is well received by servants and fellow nobles, tried to molest her in the past. After the emperor's toast to the fallen heroes, Leela decided to get some air. As she was discreetly crossing the vast ballroom, a hand suddenly grabbed her shoulder, ready to swat whoever dared to touch her. She saw Lord Delrand when she looked back. He apologized for startling her. He just thought she might want to spend some time at the balcony. Reaching their destination, the cool night air soothed their heated skin because of their stuffy uniform. Jokingly, they discuss how do they greet each other when wearing their aide's uniform. Left with an empty glass, Beer decided to get another glass and offered to get one for her too. When he left, Leela thought it was him who returned when the door made a sound. But no, it was Philin, wanting to talk to her. The mere sight of her ex-fiancé made her skin crawl. Deciding to leave, she walked past him, but the man had other plans. He doesn't want to let her go, insisting that she must go back with him to the duchy. Fed up with his stupidity, she decided to officially end their engagement. Dragging him by the wrist, they went to face the emperor. She requested the emperor to officially end their engagement. Believing the rumors, Philin mocked her, asking if she really believes that she'll have the interest of the emperor forever. The very man in question intervened and asked Duke Williot what if it's forever. Seeing as the young duke won't let go of Lord Thebessa, the emperor offered his hand to Leela. Pondering over things, she hesitated to take his hand at first, but after thorough consideration, she took his offered hand. She left Philin alone, sealing the end of their engagement. Leading her to the elevated part of the ballroom, the emperor announced her appointment as Baron. Beer discreetly prompted her to kneel. That night, Leela Thebessa was bestowed the title of Baroness Stella. The nobles got enraged that a woman was bestowed a title. It may not be based on an existing law, but it's been custom that women are not bestowed with a title. At the Duchy of Williet, Philin was enraged with what transpired at the party. He wanted to get even with Leela and bring her back at the duchy once and for all. Riding on horseback, he went to the capital to visit Leela's residence. He caught her just as she was leaving for her job. He tried to persuade her to come back, until it became coercion. That eventually led to a brief argument. Philin stopped his almost assault to Leela when he felt that killer aura once again, asking her for the last time if she's coming with him, and being told no for the last time gave finality to the dissolution of their marriage. Philin stupidly held on to his belief that the reason for Leela's change of heart was the emperor. And Leela, getting fed up with Philin's endless flaws, decided to move on without looking back. After the incident with Philin, Leela decided to review the archives and find a document that shows a woman has been bestowed a title previously. It was then that the emperor came and told her there wasn't. She's the first. Even when he tried to assure her not to worry, it was evident in Leela's eyes that she's being bothered. The emperor then asked her if she's seen data on the diplomatic dispute that happened because of the river between Netusa and Khan. Not only did Leela saw, she wrote her own consolidated report. The emperor was impressed by her work. He decided to use her material as document he'll present to the nobles during their talks about diplomatic relations. At the meeting, the document contained brief, but clear historical data about Khan and Netusa. Kan, an island located southeast of Hetan. Because it is a small island with only about 20 imperial citizens, it is not marked on maps and has no lord that manages it. As such, it became lawless and secretly used as a den for pirates. Netusa, on the other hand, is made up of 7 islands on the eastern side of the continent. It is a small country with powerful warships and navy. Dispute is a common occurrence between the two. As of late, Natusa made an absurd demand to the empire that owns Khan. To do so is akin to defeat and will narrow the empire's territorial waters. Amidst the discussion, a nobleman raised the issue of Baron Thebessa and the fact that she's a woman. As expected, they are raising their objections based on the customs and not the written laws. To put an end with their endless whining, the emperor asked a certain Marquis Valdir about what he thinks of the materials they used for that day's meeting, assuming it was Baron Delrant. He has nothing but praise for the document. It was perfect. There was good information, including the explanation of the situation and a summary of past responses. It was then that the emperor revealed that it was Baron Thebessa who wrote and prepared the meeting materials they are reading. Upon knowing that it was a woman, the nobleman started to find loopholes in the documents. Anyone who sees or hears them would feel nothing but disgrace. As if to save face, Duke Gilton raised a suggestion. If the emperor is truly confident of Baron Thebessa's ability, why not send her on a diplomatic mission? The emperor relayed it to Leela. At first, she was hesitant, but upon knowing that the emperor wants her to take it so she can prove her worth, she agreed to do it. When things were finalized and set in motion, the nobleman questioned the position that was bestowed to Leela. She was appointed deputy to the emperor and not assistant to the emperor. The emperor explained that he is giving her the freedom to use her abilities so she can show off what she can do for the empire despite being a woman. Duke Gilton mistook the emperor's actions as something that a young smitten lad would do, but he was completely left speechless when he was told that she was just being kept at his majesty's side because a skilled assistant is needed. Still, life continued for Leela and she made preparations in connection to her imminent departure on a diplomatic mission. One fine day, she can't be found in the palace grounds. It was her day off, but instead of resting, she used it as an opportunity to visit a company called Nabea. They are the exclusive company that trades wares from the Natusa kingdom. While Leela was inside, her maid, who was left outside to wait for her, was approached by Andante, the Thebessa's second son, casually. He asked about Leela, masking his words with concern, but he was obviously gathering intel, using the lame reason that Leela's birthday is coming up and that he plans to surprise her. The maid naively let out some information, thankfully not that crucial, but enough for Andante to have a gist of the situation. Thanking the maid, he gave her a bag of coins. When the maid tried to reject the money, he tricked her into accepting it by saying that the money was for Leela's gift. Loyalty won over pride, and her desire to make her mistress happy. The maid accepted the money. Andante left with a malicious snide. Leela finished her data gathering inside Nabea Company. As she went outside, a blue flash from the corner of her eyes caught her attention. A tall man with hair as blue as the morning sky was being surrounded. People didn't really recognize the emperor, but because of the color of his hair, they thought it was him, much to Leela's horror. Their hunch was right this time. Wanting to save him, Leela made an absurd move. To stop the man that was to assault the emperor, Leela grabbed the arm of the man with blue hair and called him honey. She scolded him for dyeing his hair blue. A momentary shock crossed the emperor's face, but he immediately understood what was Leela's intention. He snaked his arms around her waist and pulled her in a tight embrace, playing the role of a smitten husband. People believed their farce, and any suspicions that the blue-haired man was the tyrant emperor vanished. They were led to a dark alleyway, which Leela would learn soon as the black market. To protect her, the emperor pulled an extra black cloak from inside his own and covered her with it. She was given specific instructions not to remove her cover at all costs. Upon entering, they were greeted by the sight of child slavery. Children were being sold as slaves. Their age barely reached the age of 10. Seeing that Leela was concerned, the emperor reminded her that the empire allows it. Hideous as it may be, they cannot do anything with their current situation. delegation. With heavy footsteps, they tread the expanse of the black market and reach the stall of an old woman who sells all sort of things. Upon gazing the man in front of her, the old woman was able to discern his true identity. Unfazed, the young emperor inquired about the poison he's been looking for. Hearing their exchange, Leela recalled that the emperor was also looking for a poisonous plant during their market research. Done with his purchase, they started to leave, but one of the men of the black market announced that the henchman of the emperor has penetrated the scene. Swords were drawn, and a manhunt for them began. Grabbing her by the shoulders, the emperor led her to a secluded door that leads to a waterway. Leela can't swim, but he assured her that it will be fine. Hugging him tight, they jumped into the canal. Leela held her breath and wondered how long must she do so, but after 10 seconds, she felt ground beneath her feet. Opening her eyes, she saw the royal palace looming over them. It seems that the emperor can do water magic. He safely sent them home. Upon knowing that he can do magic, Leela showed enthusiasm akin to a child. It was adorable that he got mesmerized by it. When she started to leave, his body just moved on its own and reached for her hand. He stopped her and asked her to stay with him for a while, mistaking it as a request to discuss work. Leela asked if there was something he needed to add to the details of her diplomatic mission. Her statement brought him back to his senses. He let her go. As he watched her leave, he wondered what in the world possessed him to reach out for her and asked her to stay. Reaching her residence, she was glad to see her maid came back safe and sound. It was Hiltine who escorted her back, and she seemed to be quite smitten. It was expected, knowing how good-looking the white-haired knight is. When she asked if anything happened, her maid said no, deliberately keeping the fact that Andante Thibessa approached her. The day of the delegation's departure came. Leela donned the aide's uniform and went to the palace to check the last-minute preparations. Entering their office, she found it empty. Assuming that Beer has left for an errand, she looked around and found a copy of the material she wrote for the meeting. Knowing that it was an international affair, she knew that it's imperative that the Minister of Foreign Affairs be informed of the latest development. Taking the document with her, she went to their office. However, the Marquis's chief aide did not let her meet with him. She was informed that he was away. Still, the document in her hands needed to reach the man. She handed it the chief aide and informed him that it's about the diplomatic talks about the kingdom of Natusa. Being discriminatory because of her gender, the chief aide ignored the document and ordered his assistant to dispose of it, not knowing how important it is for the minister to see its contents, which are imperative for the upcoming diplomatic talks. Leela was heading back to their office when she heard Beer called out to her. Turning to his direction, they exchanged pleasantries and discussed itineraries for that day. Upon the mention of her visit to the office of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, concern filled his face, but seeing her unrelenting aura assured him that everything went well. They were having a light discussion when all of a sudden, Beer enveloped her in an embrace and pushed her by the wall as he covers her with his body. Wasps have entered the palace hall. If at some inopportune moment someone sees them, they would be mistaken for lovers doing something inappropriate. Unfortunately, said person who saw them was the emperor. His voice rang across the hallway as he asked what they were doing. Sadly, even his presence wasn't enough to break the embrace the two are sharing at the moment. Seems like even Beer is afraid of wasps. Asking why such pests are inside the palace, Beer hotly replied that it's the gardener that must be questioned. Agreeing to his words, the emperor used magic to get rid of the flying terror. Having done so, the emperor sent Beer to talk to the gardener, while Leela was asked to join him in his office. As they walked the halls, he asked if Leela and Beer were in a relationship. She clearly said no. In his office, they discussed the details of the child care proposal. She answered all his questions and clarifications that it was almost noon when they finished. When the emperor asked about how she feels regarding her departure, she honestly told him that she's nervous. He nonchalantly laughed, but was kind enough to remind her that if ever she forgets anything, or if things are getting tough, she must never forget that she represents the emperor. His words of assurance boosted her confidence. She gave him an affirmative nod. The emperor watched a diplomatic entourage leave. As he did so, not diverting his eyes from the window, he summoned Hiltine and explicitly ordered him to guard Leela secretly. Should there be someone who dares to harm her, he should dispose of that person without reservation, regardless of status. Beer, witnessing how the emperor was worried for Leela, told him that if he is so worried to the point that he sent Hiltine to guard her, he shouldn't have sent her away. The emperor informed him that it was Leela's decision, to which Beer rebutted that he influenced her. The reason behind it was because he wanted to make Leela show that she is deserving to the title of baron that was bestowed to her, so that the nobles would quit their yapper and to stop the ugly gossips. Done with watching from his window, the emperor turned to face Beer and handed him the orphanage documents. He will be in charge of the project while Leela is away. Beer protested that by doing so, Leela's hard work may go unrecognized. The emperor told him that it was Leela's will, regardless if her efforts were recognized or not. She chose to expedite the child care center to lessen the hardships of the orphans. Beer gushed in awe with Leela's honesty. Before he went on his way, he informed the emperor that the person at the villa has been craving for his presence. Even if Duke Gilton frequents the place, it's a totally different matter if His Majesty visited. Furthermore, the person at the villa is deeply interested with Leela Thibessa. A gentle smile crossed the emperor's face as he declared that it isn't the right time yet. He'll introduce Leela to the person at the villa when she's ready and has been properly recognized as a baron. Understanding his liege's wishes, Beer started to leave. But before he can do so, another document plopped on his hand. It contained the proposal for the abolition of slavery. Meanwhile, at the duchy, Philin has arrived and was excited, only to be greeted by grave news. Sizzly gave birth to a stillborn. The gardener and other servants are making preparations for the funeral. Philin went ballistic. In a frenzy, he summoned the physician that attended to Sizzly's labor. According to his findings, the premature birth happened due to poisoning. Rage clouded his judgment. He summoned all the servants and inquired if anyone saw someone suspicious or someone acting unusual. A maid working directly for Sizzly and is in cahoots with her scheme reported that the head maid, Misha, who is known to be loyal to Leela, was seen with a suspicious bottle prior to dinner time. Furthermore, she was the last person seen to push a food cart inside Sizzly's room. As if on cue, a knight came rushing to report that an empty bottle was found at the back of the duchy's mansion. A manhunt for Misha was ordered. The first object of search was her room, which unexpectedly was locked. Ordering the butler to open it, using his master key, they were shocked to see Misha's body bathing in her own blood. Somebody slayed her, and judging from the state of her blood, it seems it happened some time ago. With the culprit dead, Philin decided to visit Sizzly, who coincidentally, or maybe not, woke up. She was asking about her baby. When she was told what happened, she went on a frenzy. The doctor was summoned to administer calming medicine. When Sizzly fell asleep, Philin left the room after gravely threatening his servants that he would not tolerate anyone if something similar happens next time. Unbeknownst to him, the doctor who reported poisoning as the main reason for the stillborn and the maid who reported Misha as the culprit were both in cahoots with Sizzly. She employed them to carry out her scheme. Sizzly may be laughing with glee, thinking she won, but the fraud doctor noticed that Philin wasn't showing signs of a man in love when he was dealing with her. Meanwhile, the entourage has arrived at an inn to spend the night. The innkeeper raised concern upon seeing that a lady was accompanying the lot, assuming that it would be all male, considering that it was the emperor's entourage. No room is available, except for a shabby one. Leela was ready to accept it, but Marquis Valdir intervened, outrightly treating Leela as a lady and not as a member of the delegation. He insisted that someone from their group give up his room. The unfortunate Zephyl, who was the youngest among the delegation, was the sacrificial lamb. Said Zephyl did nothing to hide his rage. The uncomfortable journey turn even more rough with the recent incident. The subtle bullying didn't stop there. The other members of the delegation team were deliberately addressing her as lady, never using the title of baron nor calling her as lord. Attempting to help with the luggage proved ineffective. They just saw it as an opportunity to brush her off and rub it on her face that she is not useful because she is a lady. Fed up, she chose to stay inside her carriage to study the documents she brought with her, but the insult was so potent that it's affecting her. She can't seem to concentrate. A sudden explosion of fireworks in the sky eased her mind's turmoil. It seems that they are near the residence of their host, and it was their way of an advanced welcome. The light from the fireworks illuminated the sea. Seeing for the first time, left her in awe, wishing that she could see it up close. Upon their arrival at the Marquisate of Hutton, Marquis Valdir immediately exchanged pleasantries with the young master of the house, Alder Hutton, son of Marquis of Hutton. Leela's beauty didn't do unnoticed, and upon inquiring who she was, Marquis Valdir introduced her. As she was representing the emperor, not as a lady but as deputy, she didn't curtsy, she offered a handshake instead. However, Alder took it as a gesture asking for a kiss on a hand. The moment he gave her a perfunctory kiss as he looked up at her, she felt shivers on her spine. The way he looks at he was very similar to Andante's. Preparations were made. The butler informed her that her presence is not required not until dinner time. Granted some free time, she approached Marquis Valdir for permission to go out and see the sea. His nonchalance with his permission made Leela feel something is going on where she is not privy. To make sure that she is not mistaken, she asked once again if it's truly all right. All she got was an okay. The dread she's feeling just increased. However, because it was her nature to be trusting, she went on ahead and took Marquis Valdir's words at face value. Seeing the sea up close alleviated some of her worries. But as soon as she arrived, the dread that she's been feeling was validated. The hall of the Marquisate was uncannily quiet. Marquis Valdir was nowhere to be seen even if dinner is about to be served. Asking a footman on duty, she discovered that behind her back, the Marquis went on with diplomatic talks without her. Rushing to the meeting hall, she saw that the meeting has adjourned. The Marquis deliberately greeted her and inquired if she enjoyed the sea. Leela understood the situation. She was clearly excluded because the Marquis refused to recognize her as part of the delegates, even when she defended herself that the butler misinformed her. The whole lot claimed that they heard she was properly informed of the meeting. They were certainly ganging up on her, making her appear as if she's an irresponsible woman who only knows leisure. As the Marquis passed by her side, in hushed tones, he told her to stay quiet and go back to the capital. Dejected, Leela lay awake, regretting her actions, beating herself for being incompetent. She was wallowing by herself when a maid handed her a magic communication tool. The emperor was on the other line, asking if she arrived safely. Answering his query, she asked if things are fine in the capital. The emperor informed her that it's been raining there per usual. Hearing his voice prompted her to cry. She felt ashamed that she failed him, as if sensing her plight. The emperor reminded her of her position, the power he bestowed upon her, and the right to act as his deputy. The call was cut short, but Leela gained enough confidence to act assertively. She is the emperor's representative. She shouldn't hesitate and do the work that was assigned to her. Morning, the Natusa delegates came. They were composed on 3 men and a woman, just like Leela herself. They exchanged pleasantries, but somehow Alder was able to ruin the mood by not following protocol. He approached them as she and Sir Andrian were having a conversation. The way he addressed them was an insult to their status as members of the delegation team of each other's territories. Without sugarcoating her words, Baron Andrian reprimanded Alder. She even corrected Marquis Hutton when he addressed her as lady. Leela admired Baron Andrian's assertiveness. She exudes the air of a delegate that properly carries their title as representative of their liege. Meanwhile, at the duchy's mansion, the issue about Sizzly's fake miscarriage, which is a fake pregnancy to begin with, continues. A new report was made. According to a maid, she saw the bottle in Leela's possession on the day that she was leaving the duchy. Said bottle seemed to have been found by the late head maid, Misha, when she rummaged her mistress' things in the storage room. Rage and shock filled Phylan's face.